Amazing. So, well, it is officially beginning to look a lot like Christmas. In the Radbourne household, we now have our Christmas tree up, coed and Nadolig. Up, the boys are excitedly counting down each morning with chocolate alongside their breakfast. It's very good. Christmas Day will soon be here. 22 more sleeps to go. Die. 22 more days of build-up and busyness of getting ready, buying in the gifts, wrapping them, buying the food, arranging travel plans and making sure everyone has what they want or maybe just what they need. So it is just perfect. Die more days of trying to cling on without getting ill. Fending off the tiredness, getting those last bits of work done that seem to take 3 times longer than it should do because all you want to do is stop and rest, but you keep going. Die more days of getting in those extra events, the staff work do, the club social, but each time having to summon some sort of inner strength, not just to look outside at the cold and dark and think, forget it. Flake out, put on your PJs early, sit and eat all the Advent chocolates in one go and watch that Christmas film you've already watched 20 times. You know exactly every single word of it, but you just can't help it. There's something comfortable about it. Actually, when you think about the next 22 days, it can actually feel pretty tough. Yes, there is something deep down that likes the lights, the crisp, cold mornings. Maybe there's something of sort of like a little tingle in your belly when that Christmas song just hits you just at the right time. The excitement in a child's eye kind of can light up your day. The first time you see the holidays are coming, Christmas Coke advert? No, just me? Yeah? Great. That's when Christmas really begins. But when we actually stop and reflect on our feelings for the next 22 days, does anyone else, or is it just me, and then my whole talk's ruined, is it just me that maybe feels a bit bar humbug? Just me. Great. Well, let me put it into context. Last weekend, me and Rach and the boys went away with my sister, my brother-in-law and our 2 nieces to Center Parcs up in Cumbria. Fortunately, we're not there this weekend, otherwise we'd be snowed in. At Center Parcs this time of year, there is this winter wonderland where they decorate the site with like beautiful lights and they create this kind of Christmas wonderland filled with like this walkway through a path of lights, loads of elves and Santas everywhere. You get to go get your elf passport stamped. There's all these amazing things and the kids absolutely love it. Like it is pretty amazing. They do create that kind of, that magical Christmas feeling. But on the Sunday night, Rach and I were chatting and reflecting on how exhausted we were. How lovely the weekend had been with my sister and how the boys just like adore their cousins, playing non-stop. But man, were we just a bit done in. Like, yes, the boys were a bit under the weather, and unfortunately Caleb still is this weekend, which is why they're not here. And so when we stopped to pick up the pieces of tired children, it was challenging. But yeah, actually, when we thought about it, the last few months have been, well, a bit busy, quite heavy on us personally and work-wise. And the next few weeks for us as church leaders get even busier because it's kind of a key part of our church calendar, isn't it? As Phil has said with all the events we've got going on. But we noted that even after a weekend in the magical Christmas wonderland of Center Parcs, where we should be filled with joy and anticipation for Christmas, we were actually simply just really tired. And we were sat there on our last night thinking ahead to all that is coming up. And we were just thinking, how are we going to make it through in one piece? But then we unpacked it a little bit more together and we realized it was because there was something missing from that weekend. The Santas, the elves, the focus on letters, asking for gifts to Santa Claus that we got to post, the meaning and purpose behind Christmas just wasn't there. There was this cultural celebration that we were touching into, but actually there was something missing. The perfect sacrificial gift of God incarnate, God with us, the baby wrapped, lying in a manger, a baby that would grow up to become a man who would teach about the kingdom of heaven, that would die on a cross and save the world from itself, that would tear the veil between us and God so that we might enter into union with him, even though we don't deserve it. It was all missing. The whole approach of the cultural celebration was completely missing out Advent. Yes, there was an anticipation and waiting, but simply just a counting down of the days for a certain day to come with a massive to-do list before then. That's not Advent. Advent is so much more. Because the word Advent comes from the Latin adventus, which means arrival. There is something of an arrival. It is not an idle anticipation of just waiting, just kind of counting down days, but actually there is something of an activity about it. There is an active waiting and preparation for the coming of something that is not just to give us a nice tingly feeling, but an expectation of a groundbreaking, life-changing arrival of King Jesus. So the next 22 days, Advent, how are we as followers of living Jesus going to approach them? Because Advent provides us an invitation to prepare. To prepare not just for stuff we can get and that nice Christmas tingly feeling, but to prepare our hearts and minds for actively waiting and anticipation of the greatest gift we will ever receive, Jesus in our lives. When we look at the whole narrative of the Bible, it all revolves around this Advent, this arrival, this coming, the great redemptive plan unfolding. Right back from Genesis and the creation narrative, as God creates the world, we are made as his crowning glory, made in his likeness. Throughout the story of God's people in the Old Testament, the highs and, let's face it, mostly lows of the Jewish people through the Old Testament, coming through this broken human condition of the heart that keeps leading us away from the source of life and hope. God keeps sending prophets and kings to lead the people, to warn them that the path that they are on is leading to destruction, to remind them that the fulfillment and wholement they can have if they just put their trust in him, follow the ways he has spelled out to them. But no, they, or really we, keep getting it wrong. So God, in all these messages throughout the Old Testament prophets, drops waymarkers to hint at his grand plan, to no longer rely on us focusing on atonement and having to give something in replace of our sin. But instead, he gives clues to what is coming. He leaves a trail of breadcrumbs for those who are willing to listen and understand. He maps out what he is going to do before he has even done it. And we today can see this historical outline of God's great redemptive plan through the Old Testament prophets, the lifelines of hope that thread their way all the way to one point in history, to one man, to one God incarnate, God with us. You see, these prophecies and pictures of a coming king to save us were not all from a group of wacky mystics that could see something that no one else could, that just had some sort of revelation that nobody else could because all they did is weird stuff. No, they were just simply devoted to the scriptures. They studied them. They understood them. They looked at the signs of the times and they could see that God was about to move. The wheels were in motion for change. And like a great book in the Bible that is littered with these waymarkers of the coming redemption plan is the book of Isaiah. And so it is a great place for us to reflect on during this season of Advent. It's basically split into three key areas, the book of Isaiah. 3 parts of the same story, kind of like a trilogy. It's kind of the Lord of the Rings. No, it's not the Lord of the Rings. But part 1, chapters 1 to 39, is Isaiah warning God's people that they have gone astray, that they are focusing on the wrong things. It is a challenge for the people to reflect and reset their sights on God. So part 1, warning. Part 2, chapters 40 to 55, speaks directly of those who do not heed this warning, who fail to reset their sights on God, who maybe have gone so far that they no longer see God, might be able to remove them from this exile. And this is a physical exile for them at the time as a people group, but also an exile of the heart from the love of God. They are sat in complete loss of hope, a loss of the idea that God is willing or even able to save them. They've lost faith. They do not see the point in it anymore. And then part 3, chapters 56 to 66, sets a vision for this post-exile, a promise of what is to come. It wrestles with the how we live and worship now, with all the experiences and distractions of the world, of our current situation. And it sets sights clearly on the future redemptive plan. It puts today's perceptions, attractions, urgencies into a critical perspective of eternal relevance. So there's the warning, there's a loss of hope, and there is this post-exile vision. So how might we, over the next 22 days, not just get busy with chasing that festive feeling, looking for that nice warm tingle, or simply running headlong into burnout, exhaustion, and frustration? And I think we can see these 3 parts of the narrative in Isaiah to match to our journey this Advent. Over the next 22 days, being intentional with the 3 ways to connect with God's heart, mind, and soul, to the reason for the season. Or you might say the purpose in the presence, the basis of the brandy snaps, and the motivation in the music. I quite like those, so I came up with them. Anyway, next slide. So firstly, Isaiah sends a warning to say people have gone astray and no longer have their sights set on the ways of God, but have become distracted. He calls them to pause and reflect, get their hearts and minds set on God. So how might we respond to the invite this Advent? As we prepare all the decorations, the gifts, the trimmings that come with this cultural celebration of Christmas, if we also take time out to pause and reflect, to set our sights on Jesus, to turn our eyes from the shiny lights, to close our ears off from the bombardment of noise at this time of year, and instead take this opportunity for the next 22 days to instill counter-cultural rhythms of waiting and watching for the arrival of Jesus. To join with the ancient prophets as they sought scripture to actively wait in anticipation for a coming king. Then point 2 in Isaiah is to remove any of the things holding us back from God, to prepare, removing the obstacles. Like Isaiah 40 verse 3 says, prepare the ways of the Lord, make straight a highway for our God. What in this season do we need to remove in order to make straight the way of the Lord, to come and meet with us afresh this Christmas time? And by this, I don't mean that. Have you seen that M&S advert this year? That we simply don't do the things that we don't enjoy, that we chuck out all the Christmas hats or whatever it is, that the advert does. But what decisions do we need to make to fully give ourselves to God this Christmas? Might we see the next 22 days of an intentional time to invest in going deeper in our faith, even if that means we have to sacrifice something of the cultural celebration element? Then finally, setting a vision for post-exile. Isaiah gives this beautiful account of redemption, of the kingdom perspective on what it will look like. How might we, during the next 22 days, get a perspective that sets our sights clearly on the future redemption, that puts today's perceptions, attractions, and urgencies into this critical context of an eternal perspective? The stuff that we're dealing with now that actually are just for now. In an eternal scheme, they are small. How might we posture ourselves in a pose of active waiting during this Advent time? To posture ourselves like the Old Testament prophets, seeking the kingdom of heaven. But you know what? We already know the end of the story. We have seen the great redemption plan written. We know Jesus. We know how the story goes. It's like watching our favorite film. And you know that great plot twist that happens in your favorite film? When you watch it with someone who's never seen it before, all the way through, you're just desperate to tell them what the plot twist is. But at the same time, you want them to experience it for themselves because, it's amazing. It's like that. We already know the story. We know the spoiler in the story. We can read the Old Testament and throughout go, I know what he's talking about here. This is Jesus. As we approach Advent through this season, it's not just the waiting for, I wonder what present, I wonder what's going to come, but we know the story. We know that Jesus is born, the great redemptive plan is revealed, so we can actively wait in anticipation for that. And now I recognize maybe for you, Advent has lost it because we do know the story. The little baby in a manger, the donkeys, the wise men, but really, the story for you at Christmas maybe goes a little bit of overeating, overspending, arguments with family, the same old reruns on TV. It's the same old, like as in nothing's new under the sun, is it? But my encouragement to you this year is to posture yourself with an active waiting and anticipation. Well, no, actually, not an anticipation, but an expectation. Because we know how the story goes. We know how this great redemptive plan unfolds. So an expectation over the next 22 days that we might see God revealed to us again. A real living God this Christmas time so that we might not just celebrate the cultural traditions, which don't hear what I'm not saying. They are great. I've got 3 kids who are very excited about Sean Con. But rather, instead of having this hollow, worn out feeling, the pressure of having to get everything just right, that fed-up Groundhog Day experience on Christmas, but instead we might truly see hope, joy, peace, and love at work this Christmas. So practically, what can this look like? Well, I love the song. Sorry, I'm going to completely muck up your AV now. Can we go to the Build My Life chorus? The last one where it says, show me, fill me, lead me. There we go. So as we were singing this, just before I continue, this was just amazing, and this is my prayer for us this Christmas, that we just pray that God show me you, fill me with you, and lead me out to others with you. Some would say it's almost like following Jesus, building community in love and Anglesey, but we won't go there. Show me, fill me, and lead me. God, will you show me who you are this Christmas? Remind me that you are a living God that came with this great redemptive plan. Fill me with your love. Fill me with your hope and joy and peace. But then, God, lead me out to be a beacon of light, a lighthouse in our community. That means that we will break through pain and despair this Christmas. But not just this Christmas, on into 2024, on throughout the rest of our lives. May we be filled and led by you. Anyway, sorry, you can go back to my slides now. So practically, what does this look like? Well, I invite you, maybe for some of you, it actually needs to be more of a permissioning this Christmas rather than an invitation to set aside time each day, to just be still. Maybe for you, it is about lighting a candle, stepping outside and feeling the chill of the air, physically getting on your knees in prayer. Asking God, show me and fill me over the next 22 days. Maybe you would like to read parts of Isaiah or read small parts of the Christmas story in the Gospels to really soak it in. Not just skimming over and going, donkey, shepherds, wise men, there we go, read, done. Okay, I've done the Christmas story this year. But to really soak in, to read it slowly, put yourself in the shoes of these people that were there. Historically, they were there. Like imagine being the shepherd out on the hill, the lowest of the low socioeconomic status. They were considered the lowest. They were people on a position that were out on the hills just looking after sheep. And then as you're sat out there, this host of angels appears before you. It is announced to you, the lowest of the low, that the Saviour of the world, the one that these prophets had talked about, the great coming of a king has been born. But he's not a great king that's going to conquer everyone, but he has come lowly and meek in a stable. Go and see him. Can you imagine? I can't wait to meet those guys in heaven. If that was me, my ego would just explode. But it had to be a shepherd, the lowest of the low. Go and meet King Jesus. You might want to join with many here that are reading the Brian Draper daily email reflectionals, just to have that moment to step aside and just read through it. Possibly find some carols to worship along to in the home, but not just to get all festive about them, but to really worship along to the words that are passed down throughout the generations, singing to our God. Like, I really recommend Maverick City have a Christmas album, Hillsong have a Christmas album, Wren Collective have a Christmas album. All three of these, depending on kind of your tastes, include some great traditional hymns, but with the heart of worship weaved through them so well. So go and have a look at those. We're actually going to watch a Maverick City one in a minute, and the kind of mashup of Joy to the World and the Joy of the Lord is one of the Maverick City ones. Thanks, James, for doing that and learning that one this week. So each day, we are invited to intentionally engage this Advent. As we use the next 22 days, not just to hang on and get stuff done, but to come before God again, it will build faith in us and it will give us the boldness to step out beyond that this Christmas. Because Christmas is still, in this country, a great time to share our faith. People still have some inclination that the festivities revolve around a faithful background. Even if they pay little or no attention to it, everyone still knows. Like, it was interesting, we had a Christmas playlist on and Mary's Boy Child came on. That's like, okay, people still have some sort of connection, even though maybe it's a little bit Center Parks, it's a little bit just lights and Santas and elves, but maybe there's just still something there. Maybe it's just waiting for us to step up and share. Hopefully, as the scattered church living daily lives of faith on our front lines, people will not be afraid of us talking to them this Christmas about Jesus. Or maybe they just won't be surprised. They kind of expect it from us. Maybe they've actually been waiting for you to speak to them about it, to invite them to something this Christmas. Because I get that Sundays during the rest of the year, although I would argue every Sunday is an invitational gathering, but I recognize that for some, that's quite a big step to come along. But potentially, it's a smaller step because they recognize that this Christmas, they should maybe engage in something, that they sing a carol that does have a line about Jesus in it, and they will come along more readily. Maybe it is a great opportunity to just step out and invite those people. Next week, we have the Instant Nativity, which is a fun retelling of the Christmas story. The week after, we have our Christingle, where the theme will be Tyd I weld i'r Iesu, come and see Jesus. As we explore this invitation of Nadolig, of Christmas, to meet with the living Jesus, a perfect opportunity for you to share your faith and invite people to church to come and see what it's all about. Maybe through all the mess of Christmas, through all the noise and just busyness, you'll actually speak to one of your friends or colleagues this week who will just go, I'm just tired of it all. And it's like, you need to just come and see Jesus. Maybe don't say it quite in that word, but just say, why don't you just come and think about the purpose, the whole point behind it? Into the next 22 days, how might you respond to the invitation this Advent to prepare your hearts and minds, to make straight the paths and clear out anything that could get in the way, and then posture yourselves to actively wait in an expectation for the coming King Jesus. So we're going to have a bit of time to respond, to reflect on how we might make the most of this Advent, to pray and then to worship together. And I'm simply going to start by leaving some space. Just the time of quiet. As the buzz of Christmas builds up around us, it is sometimes good to just be countercultural, to stop and be still, to know that He is God. And then we're going to join in, watch a video of it's Revelation 19, sung by Maverick City as part of their Christmas album. It's just a beautiful repetition of Revelation 19, verse 1, which I just encourage you to let soak in, to worship along to, and then we'll see where we go. We'll see where we go after that. So, Father God, we invite you now to come and meet with us afresh through all the busyness, all the build-up, all the tiredness. God, we are just still now and wait on you.